Okay, in my previous video, we talked about the basics of Eventgen, right? Like we saw how Eventgen works, and we have seen like one example where we can basically use a sample file to replay that sample file and create events through Eventgen, right? So over there, what are the steps we followed? Basically, we have a sample file, and then we actually updated that eventgen.conf file to tell Splunk that from that sample file pick up some of the percentages of the data and create event according to our need. And also over there we replaced the underscore time, the time of the event, right, according to our need over there, right? Now what if, let's say, we are working on a very fresh project and we need to test our product over there, right? Now for that we need to create sample events over there. Now we may be knowing the event structure, but we do not have any kind of sample event available at that time. Now in those cases also we can use Eventgen to create events for us. Now over there it will be like building that event from very scratch. Okay, we just know the structure of the event. From there we will be just building that event. Now for that, what we'll do it today is we will be using a file. Okay, let's see a sample event over there. Okay, etc apps. Inside the Splunk Eventgen app samples folder, okay, so there is a file called samples tutorial 3. Okay, so if you see this particular file, so we have a timestamp, right? And then we have this transaction type, transaction ID, transaction GUID. So basically this is a hexadecimal number. If you see it over here, we have a username, city, state, zip code, and some value, some fictional value. Okay, now if you see it over here in this particular sample file, we do not have thousands of sample. We have only a single event entity here, and which is basically containing some dummy values over here, right? Now we'll be using this particular event structure to create the number of events we want in Splunk. Okay, so for that we will do the similar way, but there will be certain different configurations. We'll be doing it today. So while doing that one, I'll just discuss that one. Okay, so let us start. We will be starting with the similar way. We'll be going to our local eventgen.conf file, right? Now the stanza name will be the name of that file, right, as we have discussed previously. So I'll just copy this one, sample tutorial 3. It has to be the exact name. Okay, so this is our sample tutorial 3. Now if you remember in my previous video we talked about the timestamp replacement, right? So similar way, if you see over here we have a dummy timestamp. What we want is, we want, just like we did in our previous video, the timestamp replacement, so that for last 15 minutes, 10 minutes we'll be finding our data. Like that means the data is continuously flowing to our system, right? So the similar configurations, so whatever we have discussed in previous video, let us just try to implement it as is. Okay, so interval, earliest, latest we have already discussed, right? So we'll just copy that one. I'll paste it over here. That means every 15 seconds the event generation job will run, which will basically create events for last 15 seconds. Okay, now count, let's say today we will be creating a count, let's say thousands of events. So this configurations we already discussed in my previous video, so we will not waste our time here. Okay, so hours of the day and days of the week rate we already discussed. That means for each and every hour what will be our event generation rate, and for each and every day of the week what will be our event generation rate, right? So it is just some kind of some numbers I have given it over here. So according to your need, maybe you need to change these fractions over here. Okay, now let's move on. The randomized count, we have given that one as well, 20%, so we'll be giving that one. Now randomized events we will be not be giving today, because in our sample file now we have a single event, right? So there is no need of randomized event now. so we will be skipping that particular configurations. Now output mode, we can either give our std out or modular input, so it will be basically indexed into Splunk over here, right? So that also we have discussed. Now source type and source, I'll be keeping the same value whatever we have discussed before. Okay, the eventgen underscore test will be our source type and the source will be eventgen demo, right? And as I am not giving any index name over here, so index name, it will be automatically picked up as a main index. So let's move on. Now we discussed about the time token replacement in previous video, right? The similar concept, right? So we basically are trying to build a regex over here, which will basically replace this particular time with the corresponding times, right? So for that we use this token based replacement, right? So these three things we will be copying as is. Okay, so we are doing nothing over here. Basically this is the regex for understanding the timestamp, right? So this regex outputs will be replaced. Okay, and how it will be replacing, when we give the replacement time as timestamp, so we need to give a time format as well, which will be same as exactly this regex format over here, if you see it, right? So then accordingly Splunk will be replacing that one. Okay, so till this point we already know whatever we have discussed in my previous video. Okay, now let's move on. Now let's talk about this transaction type, right? Now transaction type over here in our sample event, we have just replaced me, right? So that means each and every event will have their own transaction type. Now for that, the transaction type actual value should be like new, those things. So for that, let me show you another file over here. Now there is a file in sample folder called order type.sample. Now this will be our value for the transaction type. Okay, now if you see it over here, this particular file having a single column, right, with all these different values over here. So we will be using this value because this value will be randomly picked up by Splunk to basically create the transaction type for a particular event. Okay, now if you see it over here, same entry appearing multiple times in this file, right, to basically support that randomness. Now to replace this transaction type for each and every event with the entry of this particular file, so there is a corresponding configurations that we will be understanding now. So first thing is, again, for functionality wise, again it's a token based replacement, right? So what we'll do is we'll create another token over here. Okay, now we'll just copy this one, we will come over here and we'll save this. If you see it here, in my last video I told you, right, like for each and every token we'll be creating, we'll be giving a corresponding numbers over here starting from 0, incrementing by 1, right? So that's why my second token is becoming token.1.token. Now token means over here we have to give a regular expression, right? So let us try to build a regular expression now. We'll just go to rex101.com. now here is our file, right? It's a sample event, we have it. Okay, now to understand, to basically extract this guy, basically that's the thing we need it over here, right? So what we'll do, we will say transaction type equals to, right? So then this is a word character, it can appear more than once. So this will be our regular expression for the transaction type, and we'll be giving a bracket over here to make it a group, so that Splunk will only replace this part, not this full part over here. Okay, so that is important. You need to create a group, regular expression group, so that only the group portion will be replaced by Splunk, nothing else. So this is the thing only we have basically given it over here, if you see it. Okay, so that's the transaction type, that's the token. Now replacement type, right? So the replacement type, let's copy this particular string over here. So our token number is 1, right? Now what will be our replacement type? For that we will go to eventgen.conf.spec file. Now if I search replacement type over here, So this is the one, right? Now previously we have used timestamp, right? Now we cannot use timestamp because this is not a timestamp we are trying to replace. Over here we have a lot of options like file, MV file. So as we will be picking up these values from a file which is having a single column, we'll be using the entry called file. Okay. Now if I just read it over here, for file, the token will be replaced with a random value retrieved from a file specified in the replacement string or replacement settings, right? So if I just copy that one, so the replacement type will be file over here. So that is what we will be giving it. Okay. Now we need to mention what file it is. We need to give the file path fully, right? So that is what we'll be giving it over here. We'll just copy this one and paste it. So the replacement will be the file path, and if you see it over here, the file path I have given it our Splunk home, then etc apps, our Eventgen app, then we are going to the samples directory, and basically we are picking up this order type.sample file, right? That is the file I have shown you over here, right? So from this file, this particular values will be picked up randomly and assigned to an event. Now this settings will work only when this file having a single column. Okay, we'll see when a file having multiple columns how to do that one. So we successfully written the code or written the configuration for transaction type, right? Now let's move on. Now we have the second thing is called our transaction ID, which is basically nothing but integers over here, right? So we'll be doing the similar kind of things with a little differently. So let me copy these configurations here so that we'll save some time. Now we are creating our third token. That's why the value is 2 over here, right? The token is, now we have to basically develop this regular expression. If I just go to regex.101, if I just paste this regular expression, so this is identifying this digits over here, right? So we'll be only replacing this portion over here. So that part we already understood. Now the second part is the replacement type. So let us go back again to the spec file. Now as we are planning to replace the integers, right? So you have to give the replacement type as integer ID over here. Okay, so that's the stuff. If you see it over here, if you just know how to read this documentation, you can use it according to your need, right? So for integer ID, we will use an incrementing integer as a replacement. Okay, so that means if I just go back over here, so if I just mention a integer ID over here and the replacement I have given an integer, it will start from this 10,000 and it will increment one by one for each and every event. So that is how it will work. Okay, so it's fair enough. It is really easy one. Now let's move on. Let's try to see the next thing called trans GUID, right? So over here we have a hexadecimal value which we need to generate dynamically to assign to these events, right? So similar way, we have to give a token based replacement. We'll copy this one first. Okay, we will come over here, this one. Now first we need to identify the portion of the replacement through an regex. That is the one. It is very easy to write, right? So it's very easy to write. So it will only allow 0 to 9, small a to small f, capital A to capital F with any numbers, right? So that's the regular expression we have. So we already identified this one. Now the second stuff we need to do is what will be our replacement type, right? Now over here we are using a random. Now let us try to see. Now for a random, so let me try to find that out. For random, the token will be replaced with the type aware value. If you see, random is a very versatile one. Now let's say if you want to generate hexadecimal number randomly or IPv4 or IPv6 address randomly, it can take care of that. Okay, based on this combination, replacement type and replacement, random can generate basically random values but with the type aware values. Okay, so over here as we are planning to replace hexadecimal values, so we'll be choosing random from here, and the replacement either you can choose GUID, Over here, if you see, you can choose IPv4, IPv6, MAC address, lot of stuff. Even you can generate random number for a floating point range as well. Okay, so if I just go right, it has a very huge number of options over here, right? So let me go a little bit over here from here. Okay, so there is an option called hex as well. Okay, so for GUID or hexadecimal values, you can use either hex or GUID. Anything should be fine over here. So I have used hex 24. That means it will start from hexadecimal value of 24, then it will increase accordingly. Okay, now we already done till this point GUID. Now we have a username, right? So the similar way, we'll be using this username from a file. Whatever we have done for transaction type, we'll be doing it for the same from here, right? We'll be picking up from a file which is having a single column with all the usernames. So Eventgen basically ships with this default files from which you can easily pick it up. If you want to create your own set, definitely you can go ahead and create it. Okay, now to do that, this is our token 4. We are using file based. Let us copy that one here. Okay, so this particular regex will identify the portion of the string which we are basically planning to change, right? That's why this particular group over here. Now if I go over here, the replacement will be file type, which you already saw over here for the transaction type, right? And here we are using a sample file called username.sample. So let us take a look. So username.sample will have lot of names over here. Okay, I think this is a huge file which you can use it for your own, or you can create your own as well. But you need to remember that when you will be using this file type of replacement, your sample file has to have a single column. Okay, otherwise it will not work. So let's move on. Let's talk about the next three stuff basically: city, state, and zip. There is a catch over here. Okay, these three things, if you see, if Splunk generates randomly the city name, the state it belongs to, and its zip code, so it may not be a realistic data, right? Because if we are picking up randomly from a particular file, that means we have to have some kind of relationship between these three guys. Okay, here the MV file, the concept of MV file comes into picture. So we will still be using a file based structure, but that file will have multiple columns. Now we'll be using that replacement type as MV file, so that for a particular event, when MV file will pick up a city value from randomly from that file, it will remember which city it picked up. Then correspondingly for that event also, again it will pick up the state and zip, similar way from the same file. We'll see that now. Okay, so for city, so this is our token 5. Okay, we'll paste it over here. Now similar way, this is our regular expression to identify the portion of the city we want to replace, right? So this is the portion we want to replace. Now over here, if you see, I have used the replacement type as MV file. So let us try to see in eventgen.conf what does it looks like. So we will just go over here as MV file. Now for MV file, the token will be replaced with a random value of a column retrieved from a file specified in the replacement settings. Multiple files can reference the same source file and retrieve different columns from the same random line. This particular line is important over here. Okay, we will see its use case when we will generate the other configurations for state and zip as well. Okay, first let us try to understand the syntax over here. So this is fine, our replacement type is MV file. That in the replacement, if you see, we're still giving a file name called markets.sample till this point, right? So if I just show you the data over here, market.sample, this is the one. If you see it over here, this particular file is holding zip, the city, and the state for different data, right? So we'll basically mainly concentrating on the first 3 columns of this file. If you see, this particular file is a multiple column file, right? So that's why when we picked up for city, which is nothing but our second column, we have given :2 over here to mention like pick up randomly a value from the second column from this file. Okay, now let's see the other stuff about state, right? So we'll be using similar kind of concept, token 6 till this point. Okay, now if you see, this is our regular expression, and now we are, I think, confident about what regular expression we are picking it up. I have still mentioned the replacement type as MB file. I have given the same sample file name, if you see it over here, but the different column name, the third column name over here, right? So if I just go over here, so this is our state name, right? So this is the catch over here. So when Splunk will be selecting a value from the column 2, it will remember that choice. Okay, for the same event, it will picked up from the same random row. That means if Splunk is picking up the city value from this row number 3 over here, so for the state it will pick up MA. For the zip, again it will pick up 1103, the similar way. This is the concept behind the MV file. Okay, so for this is the similar concept about zip code as well. So we'll just paste it over here. Here we are looking for the column number 1, right? So similar way. So now we picked up already our till this point zip, right? So the last one, we have to generate a random value. So what we'll be doing, we'll be still using a random, and as I have mentioned, you can use a random number between 2 ranges. Like here I am basically generating a floating point number between 0 and 10, right? So that's the thing we'll be doing it over here. So I'll just copy it. Okay, so this is becoming our configuration for event generation process, right? If you see it here, like we have not written a single line of code, we just configured, and this is enough to generate this 1000 events each and every 15 seconds. Now let us do that one. We need to restart Splunk, and then we have to enable basically that modular input. Before that, let me just check it out once, whether we have any data in our main index or not. Index equals to main. I'll just do for all time. Okay, we do not have anything. So let us restart Splunk. We will come back after Splunk restart completed. Okay, our Splunk restart has been completed. Now here, instead of Splunk restart, you can do debug refresh as well, so as per your need. Now let us see our modular input, whether it is enabled or not. So we'll go to data inputs, and as I told in my previous video, there is a modular input it exposes called Eventgen. So it is disabled. I'll just enable it, and then I'll go to main index. Index equals to main. Okay, if you see it, it's already started generating events for us. So transaction type, it picked up from that file. For some events it is change, for some event it is delete, for some event it is new. Transaction ID, it generated random values, okay, starting with 10,000. Transaction GUID, it generated random values starting from 24, random hexadecimal values basically. Username, it picked up from that particular file. Okay, city, state, and zip. So let us try to see whether it has picked up correctly or not. So we'll just copy this guy. We'll come back over here. We'll search for this one. So if you see it, it picked up this one. Now which zip it picked up? 87105. It picked up the correct zip code value, and the state, it should picked up in M, which is it does. Okay, that's thing. Like when this is the realistic data, right? So when you want to have this kind of constraint when you are generating your event. So you should be using that MV file, not the file over here. Okay, and this value it has generated for any random value between 0 and 10, right? Any random fractional values. And now this job is running every 15 seconds. So by this time I think a lot of events has been created over here. Okay, so this is the way we can use Eventgen to generate event from scratch. Okay, in future videos we'll try to see more use cases of Eventgen, because Eventgen is a very huge subject, so I'll be creating multiple contents for that one. So hopefully this video was helpful. See you in next video.